Hi, my name is Todd Bigelow. I'm a freelance photographer based in Los Angeles for the last 30 years, working primarily with editorial, corporate, and nonprofit clients. I'm also an adjunct professor of photography and photojournalism and a soon-to-be author on a book on freelance business practices. This is 2 Minutes with Todd, a short video series where I address business practices for freelancers. Hope you enjoy. Today, I want to talk briefly about preparing for your taxes as a freelancer. We're second week of February, and most of you should have your 1099s and W-2s if you're gainfully employed as an employee anywhere, and any other tax documents that you need in preparation for either handing your taxes off to an accountant or doing them yourself. So let's talk about a couple of things that I've done over the years. And I've worked with the same accountant for 30 years. So first thing I like to advise young photographers and those that are kind of just entering the freelance world is if you're going to work with an accountant, which I highly advise, I highly recommend, choose one that has a history and experience in working with freelancers. If you can find one that has experience working with freelance photographers, even better. But you want one that really does understand the intricacies of running your own business. Okay, so that's key, and I've been very fortunate with that. With that in mind, one of the things my accountant does early in the year, in January, is actually send me a worksheet. Okay, so this worksheet basically is about, 12, 15 pages long, and it has all of the columns and information that I provided, columns for, deductions, columns for asset appreciation, depreciation, all the types of things that accountants are going to be aware of that you can use to offset your income with expenses. Okay, so without getting too far into that, because I really do advise that you work with an accountant, what I really want to point out is that my accountant provides me the structure in which I can give him the appropriate, necessary, important numbers to him so that he can plug them in where they need to go. And he does that by supplying that worksheet, and that worksheet shows the numbers that I, had put in for last year, and it gives me a chance to reflect on whether I'm, spending more money, spending less money, earning more money, earning less money. That reflection is good for me. It gives me a chance to kind of evaluate, and it also makes sure that I don't skip over any categories that I have typically, use as expenses, for example, in previous years, okay? Your 1099s that are sent to you from clients, by law, they need to be postmarked, I believe it is, by January 31st. They need to be sent by January 31st, basically. That doesn't mean you'll necessarily get them. I often get them that first week of February because they were sent out by the client, by the companies, by the end of January. So by now, I usually have them all. And what I typically do is I just kind of grab a big old paper clip or some sort of clamp, and I just get them all together. And I start to slowly organize my 1099s. I have some W-2s because I teach as an employee. So I kind of single those out. And any other documents. I own a home, those types of things. So, any sort of mortgage interest, those types of things that are typically deductible. So it's really just an organization thing. I like to make sure that everything is set. That may seem obvious, but the more organized you are, the more likely you are to, kind of put your taxes together in a good methodical way without making any mistakes. Okay, so that's really key to what I want to address today, is to make sure that you work with an advisor, that you organize your documents, that you get everything together so that you can submit your taxes to your accountant on time. One further thing, as it becomes tax season, In Los Angeles, aside from filing income tax, I have to file a business tax. So that business tax is due at the beginning of January, but is delinquent by March 1st. So basically, you can pay it between January 1st, or prior to that if you wish, to March 1st. Okay, so I usually pay mine right about now. And I go online with the Los Angeles City Finance Department and I fill out the information. And I usually end up having to pay nothing. In fact, I always end up having to pay nothing because the threshold, if you make less than like $400,000 a year, you're usually not going to have to pay a business tax. However, I do have to file that. And the city, has been known to come after people that do not file their taxes, even if they don't owe anything. So it keeps my business tax license current and the way it should be. So if you're living in a city where that is a requirement, make sure you're getting that done. It's usually required at the beginning of the year. And the last thing, going back to income tax, if you're filing quarterly, okay, as many freelancers do, your first payment will be due April 15th. So that's only, 2 months out, right? So we're February, March, April. So if you're filing quarterly, then make sure that you're, kind of projecting appropriately for what that quarterly payment should be. Again, another great reason to work with an accountant, because a good accountant is going to base your quarterly payments on not only the previous year's income, but with the understanding that the income will either be growing or shrinking. And you should be able to have an open communication with your accountant and let them know throughout the year whether or not that's happening. Okay, so whether your income is growing or shrinking, because your quarterly payments can be adjusted. They're not set in stone. Okay, keep that in mind. I know it's only the second week of February, but I do recommend that you guys slowly and methodically get your information together to file your taxes. And also, if you have to file a business tax for the city that you work in, make sure you do that on time as well. Okay, thanks for stopping by. See you again next week.